You know that sound when a massive stamping press thrums at 30 cycles per minute just before a pneumatic seal decides to violently blow out? That is the sound of my life at Advanced Precision Manufacturing. Most people hear noise. I hear a symphony of impending mechanical disaster that only I know how to conduct. My name is Gerald Hoffman. I am 56 years old. I have a spine curved slightly to the left from 28 years of leaning over industrial relay cabinets. I possess the kind of legacy operational knowledge that corporate headhunters call invaluable right before they lowball you on a severance package. It was a cold Tuesday morning in automotive country. Tuesdays in a Michigan metal stamping plant smell like ozone, machine coolant, and burnt hydraulic fluid. It is a perfume you cannot buy at department stores. And it smells better than the sheer desperation radiating off our new management team. I was standing at Station 4 on Line 3. Line 3 was my problem child. A 20-year-old robotic assembly setup that drifted out of sync whenever plant humidity dropped below 40%. I did not rely on a dashboard to diagnose it. I felt the frequency through the soles of my work boots. The vibration shifted from a steady waltz to an uneven stumble. I was tightening an optical sensor bracket a quarter turn with a torque wrench when I sensed someone standing behind me. It was not the heavy tread of an operator in steel-toed boots. It was the hurried tapping of high-end Italian dress shoes that had never stepped on anything grittier than an executive carpet. I did not turn around. "You are standing inside the yellow perimeter hazard zone," I said without looking back. "Unless you are certified for high-voltage panel maintenance, you are 3 inches away from violating plant safety standards. Gerald, right?" The legacy specialist, a voice answered. I turned around. Standing there was Chadwick Miller, our newly appointed Director of Corporate Optimization. Chadwick was 27 years old, possessed skin so smooth it looked freshly hatched from a business school incubator, and wore a fitted suit that cost more than my first truck. He held a tablet like a sacred tablet, peering at my grease-stained work shirt with mild amusement. He looked like the type of executive who categorized an entire week of hard labor as a 90-minute video conference where the wireless internet lagged. "Senior automation engineer," I corrected him, wiping lithium grease off my fingers onto a shop rag. "And you must be the optimization guru corporate dispatched to explain why we should produce twice as much with half the budget." Chadwick offered a hand that looked far too soft to endure physical labor. I held up my oily wrench instead. He quickly pulled his hand back, wiping his fingers on his trousers. "Actually, Gerald, my official title is Director of Modernization," he said. "We are preparing to pivot our core operational infrastructure." "Pivot," I repeated. The word tasted like stale aluminum foil. Is that corporate jargon for tampering with machinery operating without issue? Chadwick let out a dry laugh. "That is precisely the flaw in legacy mindsets, Gerald. You see a machine that is not broken. I see an inefficient bottleneck. I analyze the shift logs. You spend 40% of your working hours performing manual overrides on line 3. That represents wasted human bandwidth. We require automated systems that optimize themselves without human intervention." I stared at Chadwick. I wanted to explain that line 3 was not merely a set of gears. It was a complex balance of custom legacy patches that had evolved over 2 decades. I wanted to explain that my manual adjustments compensated for a microchip firmware conflict that the manufacturer ceased supporting years ago. But I recognized that Chadwick was incapable of listening. He was focused entirely on an internal narrative where he emerged as the corporate hero who trimmed operating costs. "We have a mandatory briefing in 20 minutes, Chadwick declared, tapping his screen. "All department leads. I will unveil our digital roadmap." I watched him walk away, stepping over pneumatic hoses as if avoiding snakes. A cold sensation settled in my chest. I walked over to my metal storage locker. Tucked behind technical manuals for a programmable logic controller that went obsolete back in 2012 was a small black USB drive. It contained a complete offline backup of the entire facility logic architecture, compiled over 28 years. It held every custom patch and spaghetti code string that kept the factory running. For the first time in 5 years, I removed the drive from my locker and slipped it into my pocket. The administrative conference room was cooled to a chilly 66 degrees. Our senior floor team was gathered around the mahogany table. Ramon Diaz from plant maintenance, Walter Briggs from floor operations, and Ted Holloway from tooling. They all looked exhausted, like veteran workers who knew an administrative axe was falling, but did not know whose neck was targeted. Chadwick stood in front of a glowing presentation deck, displaying buzzwords like synergy, digital transformation, and right-sizing. "Welcome, team," Chadwick announced with an artificial smile. "Over the past 2 weeks, I have audited this facility, and I am appalled by the reliance on tribal knowledge. If Gerald here gets hit by a bus tomorrow, Line 3 halts completely. This represents an unacceptable operational risk. Effective immediately, we are transitioning to a fully cloud-based enterprise resource planning system. No more manual overrides. We are digitizing this entire plant." Raymond raised a calloused hand. "Sir, cloud servers do not account for thermal expansion in Press 4 during winter months. Sensors do not catch that nuance." "We do," Chadwick smiled thinly. "That is precisely why we are auditing all employment contracts today. We are eliminating operational redundancies." Chadwick then turned his gaze directly toward me. "Gerald, since your position primarily involves maintaining legacy infrastructure that we are phasing out, human resources will meet with you this afternoon to process your transition." "Transition," I stated. Flatly. "It is a standard organizational restructuring," Chadwick replied casually. "We are streamlining overhead. In the modern industrial era, we do not require legacy artisans, we require standardized system operators." I did not raise my voice, I simply nodded once. "Understood," I said softly. 2 hours later, I sat in the Human Resources office across from Chadwick and a young administrator named Rachel. Chadwick picked up a folder containing my contract extension paperwork. "As we discussed, Gerald, our digital migration renders your technical skill set obsolete. It is not personal. You are like a carburetor in a fuel-injected world." Rachel pushed a document across the desk. "This is a separation agreement offering 2 weeks of severance for every 5 years of service, contingent on signing a non-disparagement clause and surrendering all internal assets." The monetary offer was insulting. It would barely cover living expenses for 6 months. "What about technical handover?" I asked Chadwick. "You do not want me to brief the incoming staff?" Chadwick laughed dryly. "We possess full digital documentation. We do not require legacy lore. The new certified cloud team arrives Monday." He then placed my contract extension into a document shredder beside his desk. The machine chewed the paper into thin confetti. Chadwick smiled at me through the noise. It was an intentional display of disrespect. If he had shown even a shred of professional decency, I might have cautioned him about the heat thresholds on Press 6. I might have mentioned that roof cooling pumps required manual resets after voltage spikes. But watching my contract turn into dust, my last remnant of loyalty vanished. I signed the release without argument, unclipped my security badge, and laid my plant keys on the desk. My proprietary backup drive remained safely in my pocket. I walked out to the employee parking lot under a gray Michigan sky. Sitting in my truck, I called my attorney to review the separation paperwork. My attorney pointed out critical legal leverage. First, under Title 17 United States Code Section 106, proprietary software architecture developed outside explicit work assignments belonged exclusively to the author unless transferred in writing. My original employment contract contained no intellectual property assignment clause. Second, under Title 29 United States Code Section 2101, known as the Warren Act, laying off senior staff without 60 days advance notification during reorganization opened the company to federal statutory penalties. Furthermore, forcing a senior worker out while stripping accrued benefits bordered on actionable elder financial abuse under state statutes. "Keep quiet for now, Gerald," my attorney advised. "Let them commit to their mistake. If their system crashes because they discarded your proprietary code, they face total legal exposure." I drove home to Traverse City, poured black coffee, and waited. I knew how industrial machinery reacted when stripped of human oversight. On Monday morning at 8 o'clock, Chadwick initiated the digital migration. Standing on the elevated observation deck, he tapped a button on his corporate tablet to reroute motor control loops from our local server racks directly to the external cloud platform. Seamless integration, he declared over the plant intercom. By 10:15 that morning, operational friction began. The physical distance between local machinery and off-site cloud servers introduced a micro-latency delay of approximately 200 milliseconds. In high-speed automotive manufacturing, 200 milliseconds is an eternity. It represents the exact difference between a precise robotic weld and ruined sheet metal. Down on the floor, the rhythmic hum of Line 2 faltered. Line 2 handled precision frame welding using high-torque robotic arms. The smooth hiss of automated welding tips degraded into a stuttering thrum. The robotic arms hesitated mid-cycle, waiting for control packets from a cloud server located hundreds of miles away. "Halt Line 2 immediately," Walter Briggs shouted from the floor. "The timing loop is drifting out of alignment." Chadwick leaned over the observation railing, waving his hand. "Do not interrupt the cycle, Walter. That is merely the machine learning algorithm calibrating workflow parameters. Allow the process to continue." The operators had no choice but to watch. At 10:45, robotic Arm 4 swung forward to execute a spot weld on a chassis segment that Arm 2 had failed to position in time. Instead of joining steel plates, Arm 4 welded empty air, swung wide, and slammed violently into the heavy steel safety enclosure. Bright yellow sparks showered across the concrete aisle. The primary emergency stop relay tripped automatically, bringing the line to a screeching halt. The plant floor fell into a heavy, expensive silence. In high-volume automotive manufacturing, unplanned line downtime costs approximately $1,400 per minute. "Get maintenance over here right now." Chadwick barked through his headset. Why did that mechanical component malfunction? Raymond Diaz and his crew rushed to Line 2 with diagnostic equipment. They tested drive motors, checked optical sensors, and verified electrical inputs. Everything on the hardware level was operating within factory specifications. "The physical machinery is perfectly fine," Ramon yelled up toward Chadwick. "The control logic is lagging. The cloud server is delivering instructions out of sequence. We must immediately revert control back to Gerald's local server array." "We are not reverting anything," Chadwick yelled back, his face turning bright red under the fluorescent lights. "The cloud architecture is our mandatory corporate standard. Resolve the latency on your end. You cannot adjust the speed of light with a pipe wrench," Ramon responded fiercely. Meanwhile, inside the main server room, Chadwick's new IT team, contractors who understood basic software coding but possessed zero experience with heavy industrial automation, were sweating profusely. They attempted to force new configuration files over the local network to bypass lagging cloud nodes. However, every time they executed an overwrite command, the terminal screen flashed a system prompt error. Code 4003. Access denied. System architect root credentials required. Contact primary administrator. Ho is listed as the primary system administrator? The lead contractor asked, typing frantically. The legacy system manifest lists user Gay Hoffman, another technician replied. But human resources deactivated that account on Friday afternoon. Then who holds the root cryptographic master key? The contractor asked. Nobody in the building held the key. I was sitting on my back porch in Traverse City, 300 miles away, watching seagulls glide over the bay while enjoying a hot mug of Earl Grey tea. I had opened my personal laptop and launched a secure remote diagnostic utility. Years ago, I had configured a hidden low-bandwidth backdoor access point named Admin Ghost within an obscure subdirectory of the plant auxiliary lighting controls. Chadwick's IT crew had revoked my main user profile, but possessed zero knowledge of legacy network architecture. They were searching for active user accounts, not system ghosts. My diagnostic viewer displayed real-time terminal logs from Vance Precision Manufacturing. System status: online. User: admin ghost. Permissions: root. I did not alter a single line of code. I simply sat back and watched the data flow. Revenge in corporate engineering does not require active sabotage. It merely requires allowing arrogant management to suffer the unvarnished consequences of their own ignorance. Inside the plant server room, tension reached a boiling point. Chadwick slammed the door open, demanding to know why Line 2 remained motionless while downtime costs climbed past $45,000 per hour. "We are locked out of the core timing architecture," the lead contractor admitted nervously. A legacy security partition programmed by Gerald Hoffman is blocking our cloud overrides. We cannot modify the control loop without his master encryption signature. Then bypass the security partition, Chadwick ordered furiously. Execute a brute force override on all safety locks. Sir, that is extremely dangerous, the contractor warned. Disabling safety verification protocols exposes physical machinery to mechanical collisions and thermal overload. I do not care about your technical paranoia, Chadwick snapped. Corporate is demanding operational metrics. Override the safety gates immediately and restart line 2. On my laptop screen in Traverse City, red warning indicators began flashing across my remote terminal window. Alert, safety verification bypass initiated by user sysabinorn. Warning, press 6 thermal monitoring disabled. Warning, line 2 collision detection bypassed. I set my teacup down on the porch table. I could have sent a remote command to lock the network down instantly. I could have intervened to save the equipment. But Chadwick had shredded my contract, mocked my 28 years of dedicated labor, and treated my technical expertise as disposable baggage. If he wanted to run heavy industrial machinery without safety buffers, I was willing to let him experience the financial impact. At 1:30 in the afternoon, Chadwick ordered line 2 restarted with all safety checks disabled. Without safety protocols verifying physical component positioning every 4 milliseconds, the robotic arms moved with sudden, uncalibrated speed. For 90 seconds, it appeared to Chadwick that his brute force override had succeeded. Then, at Station 5, an optical positioning sensor experienced a brief voltage fluctuation. Under my original legacy software architecture, a sensor anomaly triggered a soft pause, slowing machinery down and rechecking position data for 10 seconds before proceeding safely. But Chadwick had disabled soft pause protocols in pursuit of speed. When the sensor failed to confirm the arrival of a heavy steel frame, robotic arm 3 did not pause. Assuming the workpiece was present, the arm swung a high-torque welding fixture forward at 6 feet per second. The steel frame was not in position, but a solid titanium hydraulic holding clamp was. The resulting crash echoed across the 30-acre facility like an artillery shell detonation. Robotic arm 3 drove the welding fixture directly into the titanium clamp. The impact sheared massive grade 8 mounting bolts clean off their housings, bending the primary drive shaft of the robotic arm like a plastic straw. High-pressure hydraulic lines ruptured instantly, spraying atomized fluid across hot welding tips. A wall of bright orange flame burst upward into the rafters as the plant fire alarm blared loudly. Fire on line 2! Ramon Diaz roared through his bullhorn, grabbing an industrial foam extinguisher. Clear the aisle immediately. Maintenance crews fought the blaze, coating expensive machinery in thick chemical foam, while raw inventory worth thousands of dollars was ruined by heat and smoke. Chadwick stood frozen on the elevated gantry, his face pale and his suit splattered with soot. When the smoke cleared, the damage assessment was devastating. Robotic Arm 3 was completely destroyed, representing $35,000 in hardware loss. The custom titanium hydraulic fixture was ruined, adding another $8,000 in direct damage. Combined with line downtime, the single crash cost the facility over $100,000 in less than 2 hours. At 2:15 in the afternoon, the emergency phone on the manager's office wall rang. It was a direct line from corporate headquarters, and the caller was Chief Executive Officer Gordon Vance. Gordon Vance was a pragmatic executive who did not understand complex software code but possessed absolute clarity regarding financial numbers. His executive dashboard had just alerted him that plant output had dropped to 0. "Why is my primary manufacturing facility completely dark?" Gordon Vance demanded over the speakerphone, his voice booming into the hallway. "And why did I just receive an automated report regarding a fire suppression system discharge?" Chadwick stammered incoherently. "We experienced a minor hardware anomaly during our digital system upgrades, sir. A local sensor malfunctioned." "A sensor?" Gordon Vance barked back. "We replaced those sensor arrays 6 months ago under Gerald Hoffman's supervision. Gerald assured me those units were rated for 5 years of continuous operation." Chadwick attempted to shift blame. "Well, Gerald is no longer with the company, sir. His legacy configuration likely concealed underlying hardware defects, concealed them or managed them seamlessly. Gordon Vance countered sharply. You assured me this digital migration would be frictionless, and that Gerald was redundant. Right now, your modernization strategy is costing this company $45,000 an hour in lost production. It is merely a temporary setback, Chadwick insisted frantically. We will restore full operation by the second shift. You had better, Gordon Vance warned coldly. Because if we miss our scheduled chassis delivery to our primary automotive client on Friday, you will not be managing a facility anywhere in this country. The line went dead. Desperate to erase evidence of his failure, Chadwick turned to his lead IT technician. Format the entire server array, Chadwick ordered through gritted teeth. Execute a complete factory reset and wipe every legacy file associated with Gerald Hoffman. Ted Holloway, our grizzled senior tooling technician who had worked at the facility since 1998, stepped forward from the back of the server room. You do not want to execute a factory reset, son, Ted warned sternly. Why not? Chadwick snapped, wiping sweat from his forehead. Because a factory reset in a facility built in the 90s clears all custom calibration profiles, Ted explained. It resets server architecture to baseline operating system prompts from 28 years ago. Every robotic arm, hydraulic valve, and optical sensor across 300 machines will lose its positioning data. You will erase the entire operational memory of this plant. I do not care about legacy settings, Chadwick shouted recklessly. We possess cloud backups of our core operational parameters. The cloud backups that failed to synchronize due to network latency, Ted asked dryly. Chadwick froze for a moment, cornered by his own incompetence. But pride overcame reason. Execute the factory reset immediately, Chadwick commanded the IT lead. Wipe the legacy partition completely. We will rebuild system architecture from scratch. Sir, executing a factory reset will take the entire plant offline, the IT technician cautioned. Not just line 2, everything. Power distribution, environmental controls, automated security gates, and main lighting grids. Do it! Chadwick screamed, losing control. I am in charge of this facility. Strip his code out of my network. The IT technician reluctantly typed the system override command, format system, root force. A warning prompt appeared on the screen. This operation is irreversible. Proceed? Y or N. The technician hit Y and pressed enter. Instantly, every terminal screen in the control room flickered and went black. The hum of server cooling fans died down to a whisper. Out on the main factory floor, the bright overhead lighting grids buzzed loudly and extinguished. Emergency sodium lamps kicked on, casting a dull orange glow over silent machinery. Conveyor belts halted with a jarring thud. The heavy industrial air compressors wound down with a long, mournful hiss. Silence fell over the 30-acre facility. An absolute silence that cost $45,000 for every 60 seconds it persisted. Chadwick smirked triumphantly in the dim orange light. Excellent. Now boot up our new corporate software image. The IT technician pressed the main server power button. The drives spun up and white text scrolled quickly across the master monitor. Booting core system. Loading operating system. Error. Primary boot device not found. Error. System architect cryptographic signature missing. Access denied. Chadwick leaned closer to the monitor, his eyes wide. What is the meaning of that error? It wiped the high-level operating system, the technician explained in a trembling voice. But the low-level motherboard BIOS chips are hardware encoded. They require Gerald Hoffman's master cryptographic key to authorize a new operating system installation. The hardware refuses to execute commands from an unrecognized authority. Can you bypass the motherboard BIOS? Chadwick demanded. No, sir, the technician replied. The security chips are physically flashed into the hardware. Suddenly, a system broadcast message appeared across every active terminal screen in the building. It was a high-priority text notification delivered through our emergency cellular gateway. Maysheet from Admin Ghost. Did you just attempt to format my architectural logic, Chadwick? That was remarkably unprofessional. Chadwick stared at the monitor, his jaw open in shock. He is monitoring us! The IT technician gasped, looking around the darkened room. His ghost profile is embedded in the hardware. He is not a ghost, Chadwick shrieked hysterically. He is committing illegal system intrusion. Trace that cellular signal immediately and contact law enforcement. Ted Holloway put on his heavy jacket and picked up his lunchbox. He is not intruding, Chadwick. You attempted to break into a technical architecture he constructed, and you tripped his security system. I am heading home. Call me when corporate hires a competent adult. Ted walked out, leaving Chadwick standing in the dark, surrounded by silent dead machinery. By Thursday morning, the facility had been completely dark for 16 consecutive hours. Outside the main perimeter fence, dozens of heavy transport trucks were idling in long lines along the highway because automated access gates remained locked shut. The just-in-time logistics chain was completely paralyzed. Inside the plant, Chadwick had descended into pure desperation. Refusing to admit defeat, he hired a crew of uncertified night-shift contractors to physically bypass digital power control cabinets down in the main electrical vault. He intended to hotwire the main 480-volt electrical busbar directly to machinery, bypassing software logic gates. Ramon Diaz discovered the contractors attempting to jam heavy copper jumper cables into the high-voltage main distribution panel. Ramon immediately recognized the extreme danger. Bypassing phase sequence protection on a 480-volt industrial grid meant that when power engaged, electric motors would rotate in reverse. High-pressure hydraulic pumps would attempt to pull instead of push, giant press rams would smash upward into upper die housings, and ventilation turbines would draw toxic manufacturing fumes back into the building. Ramon immediately evacuated all remaining floor workers to the outer parking lot and called my personal mobile phone. "Gerald, you need to respond immediately," Ramon urged, his voice filled with anxiety. "Chadwick has lost his sanity. He is attempting to hotwire the main electrical bus bar down in the power vault." "Hotwiring 480 volts without phase monitoring?" I asked, standing up from my porch chair. "That will trigger catastrophic mechanical destruction across the entire facilities." "He evacuated my maintenance crew to the perimeter fence," Ramon explained. "But if they engage that main breaker without sequence protection, the press line will explode." "He will not listen to reason," I thought quickly. But my original legacy installation contained one final emergency failsafe. Years ago, I had installed a dedicated cellular circuit breaker trip relay directly inside the master high-voltage switchgear cabinet. It was designed to isolate the plant in the event of a major grid surge or physical emergency. I opened my phone messaging application, selected the secure cellular line connected to the plant master breaker, and typed a single word in plain text. I hovered my thumb over the screen, imagining Chadwick in the dark power vault shouting at frightened contractors. Then I pressed send. 300 miles away, inside the electrical vault of Advanced Precision Manufacturing, a tiny electromagnetic relay closed with a soft click. Instantly, a sound like a cannon blast echoed through the facility. Boom! 3 massive industrial-grade main fuses blew simultaneously as 10,000 amperes of electrical energy slammed into a solid tungsten isolation barrier. Bright blue arcs flashed through power shed windows as total electrical power was severed cleanly at the utility drop. The main transformers fell silent. The hot wiring attempt was dead. The machinery was saved from total destruction, but the plant was completely dead to the world. By 10 o'clock Thursday morning, the financial devastation at Advanced Precision Manufacturing had reached catastrophic proportions. Unfulfilled customer shipments accounted for $220,000 in direct losses. Contract non-delivery penalties added another $110,000. Destruction of main high-voltage fuses, damaged switchgear, and ruined tooling added $70,000 in repair costs. In less than 72 hours, Chadwick Miller's modernization initiative had cost the corporation over $400,000. A long black executive limousine pulled through the plant gate, coming to a stop near the scorched power shed. Chief Executive Officer Gordon Vance stepped out, wearing an expensive wool coat and an expression of quiet fury. Beside him stood Chadwick Miller, covered in black electrical soot, looking like a disgraced child. "Explain this disaster to me immediately," Gordon Vance said, his voice deadly calm. "It was malicious corporate sabotage." Chadwick stammered frantically. "Gerald Hoffman breached our network remotely and destroyed our electrical infrastructure." Gordon Vance turned his cold gaze toward Chadwick. I spoke directly with the regional electrical inspector 10 minutes ago, Gordon Vance stated sharply. The inspector confirmed our main fuse is tripped because your contractors attempted an illegal phase sequence bypass on a 480-volt line. He stated that if those master fuses had not tripped automatically, our primary hydraulic presses would have detonated, likely causing loss of life. Chadwick opened his mouth, but no words came out. You did not experience sabotage, Chadwick, Gordon Vance continued mercilessly. A legacy safety system prevented you from committing gross corporate negligence. You have destroyed $400,000 of company assets in 3 days. Gordon Vance then pulled out his mobile phone. Effective immediately, you are terminated for gross breach of fiduciary duty and reckless dissipation of corporate assets. Leave this property at once before our legal department files criminal charges for property destruction. Chadwick slumped his shoulders, turned around, and walked toward his car without saying another word. Gordon Vance then walked over to Ramon Diaz. Can we restore electrical power to this facility? We can replace blown high-voltage fuses, sir, Ramon answered, folding his arms. But the operational brain of this plant is gone. Chadwick executed a complete server wipe. Even with main power, machinery has no operating system. We are completely helpless, unless what? Gordon Vance asked, rubbing his forehead in frustration. Unless you contact Gerald Hoffman and accept his terms. Ramon answered with a faint smile. At 11 o'clock that morning, my personal mobile phone rang. I let it go straight to voicemail. It rang again 5 minutes later, voicemail. At 11:15, a text message arrived from Chief Executive Officer Gordon Vance. Name your price to return and restore the facility. I waited 10 minutes before typing my response. I am comfortably retired. However, I am available for emergency technical consulting. My rate is $350 an hour, guaranteed under a 6-month minimum retainer. Furthermore, I require a formal written apology delivered to our floor maintenance crew, and Chadwick's former executive office must be converted into a floor break room equipped with a commercial espresso machine. Gordon Vance replied instantly. Agreed without reservation. How quickly can you arrive? I am 3 hours away, I messaged back. Do not touch a single electrical switch until I step onto the floor. I took my time driving back down to automotive country. I stopped at a roadside diner for a relaxed lunch, listened to classical music on the radio, and arrived at the facility at 3 o'clock that afternoon. Gordon Vance was waiting at the main entrance. He walked up to my truck and extended his hand. Gerald, he said humbly, thank you for coming back. Mr. Vance, I acknowledged, nodding politely. I did not shake his hand. I walked past him straight into the central server room, where Nolan Reed and the remaining IT crew were waiting in total darkness. Clear the console. I instructed Nolan, sir. The operating system is completely erased. Nolan stammered. The operating system on primary drives is erased. I corrected him. I pulled the black USB drive from my pocket, the exact drive Chadwick had watched me remove from my locker, and inserted it into the master server console port. I then entered my master cryptographic password. Instantly, terminal screens lit up with bright green lines of text, reading external master archive. Cryptographic signature verified. Gerald Hoffman. Restoring custom legacy operating system, decrypting partition state. Across the control room, green progress bars advanced rapidly. The complex network of code, custom firmware patches, and legacy timing routines that I had built over 28 years compiled seamlessly back into server memory. System restoration complete, Nolan whispered in awe. Every calibration parameter, timing loop, and sensor profile is fully restored. I turned to Gordon Vance, who was standing in the doorway. The machinery requires 2 weeks of careful recalibration to recover from Chadwick's forced shutdowns, I informed him. Whatever resources you require, you have them, Gordon Vance replied immediately. I then pulled a legal document from my briefcase and handed it to Gordon Vance's corporate counsel. There is one final legal matter we must settle regarding intellectual property. What matter is that? The lawyer asked, reviewing the paper. 12 years ago, I explained, when corporate refused to purchase an expensive proprietary software license for Line 3, the previous management team signed this written agreement. It explicitly specifies that the custom logic architecture remains my personal intellectual property, licensed to Vance Precision Manufacturing for $1 per year exclusively while I am employed here. When Chadwick terminated my employment on Friday, that software license expired automatically. The lawyer's eyes widened in panic as he read the agreement. Which means for the past 3 days, the lawyer gasped, the company engaged in unauthorized use of proprietary software architecture. Technically, yes, I replied calmly. However, I am willing to execute a permanent licensing agreement under one strict condition. I retain absolute veto authority over the appointment of any future corporate optimization or IT directors. No administrator touches my system code without my explicit written consent. Gordon Vance signed the agreement on the spot without hesitation. Done, Gordon Vance declared. 6 months have passed since that dark week. Today, Vance Precision Manufacturing hums with perfect mechanical rhythm. Line 3 runs smoothly at 30 cycles per minute, its optical sensors operating in flawless harmony. Chadwick Miller landed a new position as a digital transformation consultant for a logistics firm in Ohio. I give his new employer 6 months before their automated routing software directs delivery trucks into local rivers. As for me, I sit in my comfortable leather chair inside the newly renovated floor break room, formerly Chadwick's executive office, sipping fresh espresso from our commercial machine while monitoring plant metrics on my tablet. Out on the floor, Nolan Reed is learning how to adjust sensor brackets by feeling mechanical vibrations through his boots. He is learning that true engineering excellence is not downloaded from a cloud server. It is built through decades of dedication, respect for machinery, and the unyielding pride of a master craftsman.